Howard Lau, and this is FSX Road to Recreational Pilot. Welcome to Episode 4, Introduction to Circuits, Flying Portion. In this flight, we are going to cover normal circuits and a go-around, and also a touch-and-go procedure. However, before further ado, I would like to explain why we are not at Moorabbin. We are in fact at Mangalore, and we are parked next to the Mangalore Flight Training Association building. The reason why we're at Mangalore is because Mangalore is an uncontrolled airfield. And during your training, when you approach this stage, it is normal for you to begin your training at an uncontrolled airfield because there are less things to worry about, and of course, it is safer as it is less busy. So, without further ado, let's get started. Today we'll be doing one normal circuit with a touch and go, and then a go around, and then the normal circuit with a full stop landing. We have a very slight breeze off to our north, and we'll take runway 36 for departure. Let's get started. Pre-start checklist. Fuel selector valve on both. Fuel shut-off valve is in. Parking brake is set. Cabin air is selected off. Mixture exercise and set off. Throttle exercise and set off. Throttle friction nut is set. Throttle 1/4 of an inch. And then it will be start checks. Parking brake on. Parking brake on. Prop area is clear. Clear prop. Master switch on. The engine has been shut down for more than 30 minutes, so we're going to prime it. So fuel pump comes on. Mixture to rich. Wait for the fuel flow to settle. That comes back to idle cutoff, and fuel pump comes off. That should be sufficiently primed. So look outside, prop area is clear, and activate the starter. When the engine fires, we're going to advance the mixture up to 1/3 of an inch, and then push it back, push it into full rich. Like so, and push it into full rich. Oil pressure is rising, no annunciations, and set to 1000 RPM. Let's do the cut, live cut check. Left, right, left, both. It runs smoothly, there's no cutoff, which is good. Avionics switch on, taxi light on, headsets on, and I'm going to teach you how to do something called aggressive leaning. So what you do is you set throttle at 1000 RPM, and then you start leaning the mixture until the engine stumbles. Watch. There we go, the engine stumbles, and you push it back in, just enough to make it run smooth again. Just like so. And it's running smooth at 1000 RPM, and you are sufficiently leaned. And look how far back the mixture is compared to yesterday. Yesterday, we only leaned an inch. And to be honest, leaning an inch is good for most situations. However, if you really want to save the spark plugs, you lean like this, and especially if you have time. And especially if you have a long taxi. So what we're going to do now is engine T's and P's are already in the green. We are going to do our run-up checks right here. So, of course, you're going to make sure clear behind. And let's do our cigars checks. So it's controls. Controls. Airframe, so it's hatches and harnesses secure. And then let's do our run-up. Controls airframe, gas, mixture rich. Airframe, that's good, and then run up. Let's hope the spark plugs are sufficiently clear. Left, both. Right, both. It is nice and smooth. Engine T's and P's are good. Test the annunciator panel. That's good, and then test the idle. Once again, do not shilly-shally at idle. You don't want to be mucking about at idle too much. That's good. Back to 1000 RPM, and we'll lean the mixture out. Once again, using the aggressive lean technique. So it's 1000 RPM. Leaning it back. Leaning it back. Wait for this engine stumble. There it is. And then restore the revs. Just enough. Let's push it in just enough to restore the revs. It's back to 1000. There we go. And we are nice and leaned. So the engine will be running nice and hot. And one of the good things of leaning the mixture so far back is that if you only lean the mixture back an inch, you can mistakenly take off with a lean the mixture. However, using this mixture, you're not going to, because, well, let's try advance the throttle. It stumbles and is not going to develop full power. So that would remind you to lean the mixture. So let's taxi out. Pull the throttle back, release the brakes. Throttle back up, get the aircraft rolling. And we're going to take runway 36 today. Aircraft is rolling, test the brakes, that is good. And let's swing her around and taxi out to runway 36. We're going to do 3 circuits today. And these are just normal circuits with 1 go around. Nothing special, nothing fancy. Yet. We will get to the fancy stuff later. And this is not default scenery, by the way. This Bangalore airport, it's freeware scenery from AVSIM, I believe I got it from. And it is pretty nice, ignoring the static aircraft. It's got accurate hangar placement and everything. I've never been to Bangalore before in real life, but it is a pretty close to Moorabbin. It's just, I believe, 50 miles to the northwest of Moorabbin, so it's pretty close. So we're going to join taxiway Charlie, and we're going to hold short. And it is an uncontrolled airfield, so you declare your intentions on the CTAF. So we're going to hold short, and then we're going to do our Timfish checks as we did yesterday, or the episode before. Timfish, once again, is our pre-takeoff checks. However, we're going to skip transponder for now, since we're staying in the circuit. We don't need the transponder to be at altitude. That, by the way, is our run-up area, usually. So what we're going to do now is we're going to stop here at holding point Charlie. Reduce the throttle. Set the parking brake, and Timfish. So it's trims, ignoring transponder. Mixture, standby. I don't want to push the mixture in too quickly, too early. Master, mags, primer, fuel, instruments, switches. So all the lights on. Controls. I'm just going to test it once again. Hatches and harnesses are secure, and we are good to go. So let's taxi out. And what I usually do is I have a method in real life that I use to avoid taking off with a lean mixture. Is that the way I hold the throttle is that I have my right hand index finger actually sticks out to the right, just in front of the mixture knob. So every time I push the mixture, every time I push the throttle in, the mixture, my index finger will hit the mixture knob, and that would remind me to push the mixture to full rich. That's how I usually do it in real life. And the reason why I keep a lean mixture until the last minute for a power application, I want to be nice to the aircraft. It's because I don't want spark plug fouling. And I mean, I don't own this aircraft. I mean, even in real life, I fly rental, but it's still good to be nice to the aircraft, because if you be nice to the aircraft, I believe it's going to be nice to you. So, as you probably know, standard circuit height is 1000 AGL, and our field elevation is at 1,500 feet. So our correction, our field elevation is 500 feet, so our circuit height is going to be 1,500 AGL. So we're going to need not need, but we want all the runway possible. It's 1,400 meters, very long runway. Nice and long runway. So flaps are up. Right, so normal takeoff, normal circuits. Nothing special for this lesson yet. Slow down, get ready for the turn. 3/6 on the numbers, 3/6 on the compass, 3/6 on the DG. That's what I usually say. Just making sure that we are on the right runway. And when we get lined up, we're going to go mixture rich and full power. So I've mapped the key for mixture rich, so we can go mixture rich and full power. Early in the takeoff roll, T's and P's are good, revs are good, airspeed alive. 55, gentle rotation, and then keep the nose down because you want to accelerate first. These aircraft can't accelerate and climb at the same time. 75, and then VY attitude, just like that. Just like that, nothing special. Very easy, isn't it? It is. And then VY attitude, just a VY climb. So when we're 400 feet above ground, it'll be lookout, and then 500 feet bank, balance, back pressure. So 400 feet above ground, lookout, clear, and then closing it at 500, bank, balance, and back pressure. Just like that. And remember, climbing turn no more than 20 degrees. Otherwise you'll have a massive performance deficit, and that'll be no good. So you just ease it into crosswind. Everything about the circuit is really just easing it in. You don't want to ever bank too hard or too fast, because you can have a stall spin. So 45 degrees behind us, 1,500 feet, level off, attitude, speed should be about 95 knots. Power 2000 RPM, and trim as required. We're going to trim only when we level out, when we roll level. So remember, you don't ever want to extend your crosswind too excessively, and you don't ever want to extend your downwind too excessively. These are the two legs you really, if it's not necessary, don't extend it, because if you extend it, you might not make it back to the runway. And I'm a fan of tight circuits, so that's good. So first thing we do on downwind is drift. Is good, trims are good, and then we do our downwind checks. So it's brakes, undercarriage, down and welded, mixture rich, master on, mags on both, fuel sufficient, landing light on, oil temperatures and pressures are in the green, hatches and harnesses are secure. That's the downwind check. There is no rush. You can take it slow, and then we're waiting for the runway to be at our 45 degree position at around 8 to 8:30. That's around there. So now we go throttle 1500 RPM. Hold the nose up, alright, hold the attitude. Flaps 10, and we turn onto base. Turning onto base, you hold the attitude, alright? You don't let the nose drop, because you want to slow down to within the white arc, which we are, and then you want to slow down to 70 knots so you can dump 20 degrees of flaps. So we're at 70 knots, we can actually ease the nose down a bit just to maintain 70 knots. And then here, flaps 20, and then you trim. You don't trim early, right? So we set the attitude for 70 knots, and now we look at the runway. So it's aim point, aspect, and airspeed. That's how you work. Aim point, aspect, and airspeed. And aim point, I'm aiming for the numbers. Aspect, I'm looking for a normal approach profile. And airspeed, I'm looking for 70 initially, and then 60 when crossing, 65 when crossing the keys. That's what you want. And then remember, during your turn to base, you ease it into base, like so. No massive turns, no jinking about. So now we are established on final. Full flaps, nose down ever so slightly, power up ever so slightly, just to maintain 70 knots. The reason why we maintain the upper limit of the approach speed range is because in case of a sink, we can have the extra speed buffer. We have a long runway, we don't have a rush to come down. So aim point is good, constant on the windscreen, remember. Aspect is good, and airspeed we can start slowing down. So we pull the power back to around 1,000 RPMs, hold the attitude, we will start slowing down to 65. Aim point tucking in under the nose, power to back, power idle, and then eyes to the end of the runway, and we flare. We hold it up. We hold the nose up. Hold the airplane up. We hold it straight level. Just like that. Hold it. There, nice, gentle touchdown. A little bit flat, but nice and gentle. Flaps up. We retrim. We only retrim when there's sufficient runway, which we do. And then we can go full power. That was a normal circuit and a normal landing. 55, gentle rotation. Accelerate, let it accelerate. During acceleration you can trim as well. On the Cessna usually you need to trim forward. And then VY attitude. Just like that. Easy, isn't it? It is. It's nothing that special. Next up we're going to do a go around. And why do you want to do a go around? Well, if you have an unstable approach, if you ever feel uncomfortable, or if there's an aircraft on the runway, you might want to do a go around. And just a quick recap, going around is power, attitude, speed, flap, and trim. So you want to get rid of 30 degrees, you want to retract to 20 degrees of flaps immediately. However, when you only retract the flaps to 10 degrees when you're above 60 knots, and retract the flaps to up when you're above 70 knots. And this is so you can avoid a stall. And this is really important, especially if you're doing a low level go around. Attitude, down, speed. We can start a turn, attitude, speed, building to 95, and power, 2000, and trim standby. And rolling out on downwind. Remember, if you don't need to extend your crosswind, you never extend your crosswind. You want to stay nice and tight to the runway, yeah? Get it nice and trimmed out first. Trim, drift, and then downwind checks. Those brakes, undercarriage, mixture rich, master on, mags on both. Fuel is sufficient. Oil T's and P's are in the green. Landing light is good. Hatches and harnesses secure. That's the downwind checks there, complete. Moved the mic a little bit, but that's alright. Anyway, so we're waiting for our 45 degree. And when we are at 45 degrees, it will be 1500 RPM, hold the attitude up, flaps to 10. And we retrim on base when we have 20 degrees of flaps. And we're waiting for 45 degrees. You don't want to extend your downwind if you don't have to. Waiting. That's 45. Power comes to 15. Holding the attitude up. Flaps 10. Turn. And it is worth noting that you actually want to be leveled off on final at or above 500 feet. So final, you have to be rolled out at or above 500 feet. And level off, get the attitude, and 20 attitude. And then it will be aim point, aspect, and airspeed. That's your work cycle. Aim point, aspect, airspeed. You can even say it to yourself. Aim point, aspect, airspeed. And now we ease it onto final. Base to final turn, remember, is a dark spot for pilots to kill themselves, because a lot of pilots, they overshoot and then they end up putting in way too much bank. They come slow and then they end up spinning it in, unfortunately. And at this altitude, you won't recover. And we are leveled right at 500 feet. That's what we want. And we are stable on final. Full flaps. Lower the nose. Increase the power. We want to be at 70. And then let's do a go around. So for some reason we need to go around. So power, attitude is level flight, and the flaps immediately to 20 degrees. Increase the attitude a little bit. We are good on speed. We have positive rate of climb. Flaps 10. Above 70 knots, flaps up. And then trim. Remember, you'll need a lot of nose down trim. And once we hit 500 feet, we're going to turn the crosswind again. This will be an early crosswind turn. For traffic separation usually. So 500, turning. Just like that. Easy, isn't it? And then now we're going to bring her in for a full stop landing. Just a normal touchdown, normal rollout. We're not actually going to do short field or anything fancy yet. Right? So I want to keep it as simple as possible because I know it's very complicated. Attitude, speed, let it build, power, comes back. To 2000 and trim will wait. And trim her out. Just like that. Don't want to be too fast, but don't want to be too slow. So now downwind, drift is good, brakes, undercarriage, mixture, master, mags, fuel, landing light, oil T's and P's, and hatches and harnesses secure. Just like that. Easy. So there's no rush to do anything, even though it seems like there's a lot of there are a lot going on in the circuit, which is true. But you don't want to rush it. Okay, 1500. Hold the nose up. Flaps, and then turn. Flaps 10, turn. And now we're within the wide arc. Just going to hold the attitude just like that. And then leveling out on base. Flaps 20, establish the attitude, get a bit of power in, and then trim. Just like that. And then we're right at 70. I'm hands off. That's what you want, alright? On landing, trim is so important. And now we're going to ease it onto final, and we're going to start. Aim point, aspect, airspeed. Aim point numbers, aspect normal. Airspeed should be at 70. We have undershot final a little bit, but it's better than overshooting. And we're on final at or above 500. Now we can go flaps full. Lower the nose even more. And now aim point, aspect, airspeed. That's how you work. Aim point, aspect, airspeed. There's no rush. Alright, smooth and small corrections. Alright, and I'm so well trimmed that I actually can fly hands off. It's just flying, just little small corrections. Now we can slow down to 65, so we reduce the power, hold the attitude. Right, aiming point tucking under, power comes to idle, and then eyes down to the end of the runway, holding it up, holding the aircraft off, flying it just like that. Just gonna hold it up, wait for the sink, hold it up, hold it up, hold it up, hold it up, hold it up. There we go. Drifted off the center line a bit. Seems like we are having a little bit of wind. Didn't correct for it. And this is a full stop, so we're gonna hold the back pressure and gently tap the brakes to stop. Just like that. Isn't it easy? It is. I hope it is. And if it's not, small practice will do the job. And now we're going to take the taxiway that we missed behind us, and we are going to taxi back to the apron. And today I'm going to show you post-landing actions as well. So, you don't want to touch anything inside before you have vacated the runway. There's a reason for that, because you don't want to lose control of the aircraft. You don't want to be looking down when you really should be looking outside. So what we'll do is we're going to vacate the runway first, stop, and then do the post-landing checks. So, post-landing checks. Stop it. Throttle back to 1000. Flaps are up, so it'll be flaps up. Lights are off, except for the taxi. trims are reset to takeoff position. And then mixture, we're going to lean once again, aggressive leaning. There you go, that's stumbles. And then moving it back in. Just enough. Right, okay, so we can taxi back now. So get rid of the brakes and let's taxi back to where we started. We'll do our shutdown checks and secure the aircraft. So I hope you learned something today. The most important thing is you're learning and practice a lot. I know it's hard. It's probably the hardest part of your training. That's what I think at least. And yeah, it is fun. It is a fun part of your training though. And I mean, I did drift off the center line, which is not ideal. Ideally, you do want to be on center line. That's where the aircraft belongs. And center line control is something that I'm continuing to work on. But I think you get the point, is when you round out and flare, I think the most important thing is smoothness. Is eyes down to the far end of the runway, and remember, wait for the sink. Otherwise, you won't come down. That's MFTA building right there. So what we're going to do now is just stop here, just get the nose onto the lines, should be about there, stop, brake set. So what we're going to do is taxi light off, avionics master switch off, going to go idle check for the idle first, and then we're going to do something called the magneto cut check. So what we're going to do is move the ignition switch to off and then back to both really quickly. What you want to see is the propeller sort of wanting to stop. So the purpose of this check is to make sure the magnetos ground and deactivate properly. And now we're going to move it back to 1000 for about 10 seconds. Just going to let the excess fuel burn out a bit. And we can move the mixture to idle cutoff to stop the engine. So it's mixture, and then it will be mags and master. So mixture, wait for the propeller to stop, mags, and then master off. Headsets out, and after that, cabin air back in, fuel selector valve on left to avoid what's that called, cross feeding, and then control lock, put it in, and basically you can leave the aircraft just like that. So that's it for now. Most importantly, if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I'll reply ASAP. And have fun, fly safe.